Hello and welcome to the trade setup. In this video we are looking at Astera Labs. It is time for another update, and today we will be discussing the failure of the white scenario. We broke here below the area of support, as well as the implications of such a failure. But before we get there, I would like to go quickly through the larger time frame for any of you who might be new. And here we are, and we have been tracking a 1-2 setup. This was the idea that we were tracking for a third wave to be following here to the upside, and honestly, this remains unchanged. We are still looking here at a wave 1 up and a wave 2 down, and even for a third wave to be forming. However, we cannot be tracking this idea, this interpretation within the impulse, within this 5-wave move to the upside, and even a series of 1-2 setups in this area. There is still a corner case where it might still work out to form into a larger impulse in the wave 3, but that would actually have quite unrealistic expectations, and that is why it is not necessarily my preferred interpretation right now. It could still work out, and if we get some evidence for it to be the case, we can be tracking that more closely. But right now, probably the preferred interpretation for me is the idea of a larger leading diagonal forming to the upside, where we are still looking here for a 5-wave move to be forming, but we aren't going to be looking here to form an impulse in any of these waves. We are going to be tracking even this third wave to the upside as an ABC structure. And in that case, you may be thinking, okay, but couldn't we have already completed the wave 3 here in that case? And technically, yes, we do have a possible ABC structure to have formed in this area, but it is not necessarily a preferred interpretation. It is not ideal, and that is mainly because within this third wave to the upside, we haven't even gotten to the 123.6% extension of the wave 1, and the 138.2% extension is actually the ideal target. That is what we were aiming for within this follow-up wave 5 to the upside, but again, we didn't get it. And even if I actually consider this as the actual wave 1 low, the beginning of the wave 1, I don't believe we would have even reached, we would have reached the 123.6% extension in that case, but not the ideal target again. So I am actually looking for a possible extension here within this larger wave 3. And we will be removing this idea, this interpretation of forming here a 4th and a 5th to the upside, since again we broke the area of support. But before we do that, I want to make one thing extremely clear, and I have explained this before. It is not that we were never going to hold here this area of support in the wave 4. It is not that we were never going to form here the impulse to the upside. We actually had a very good chance of forming this impulse. We even had quite an appropriate attempt, quite a sizable move from the actual exact bottom here at the 50% retracement. We have pushed here nearly actually over 30% up since we have formed this bottom. It is just that the market sentiment, or rather that the market, the price, the performance expectations didn't match the actual current pricing, and the market sentiment shifted into a more bearish scenario. We had a chance. If the outlook, if the guidance would have been better, probably it would have worked out. We would have formed here the 5th wave to the upside, and we would have still been able to track an impulse forming in this area. But since we have broken here the 50% retracement, in my opinion, this idea, this movement to the upside is permanently damaged, and we have to be tracking an updated view of the market sentiment, based on the structure that has formed. This is a representation of the market sentiment, and we need to be tracking it to determine the expectations, the outlook of this stock. So with that said, we can now actually I want to go here even through the orange scenario, because here we were looking for a resistance area. We were looking for up to the $185 level for a possible wave 4 correction, and then a 5th wave to form to the downside. Now, since we have broken above it, we aren't necessarily tracking this as a larger ABC movement. We were tracking in orange a possible extension of this wave C to the downside, and in white we were tracking a possible bottom, by the way. But I would rather consider this probably as a larger ABC structure instead, since again we have broken above the relevant resistance levels. Yeah, I would then consider this movement to the downside already done, unless maybe something even more bearish could actually be going on. But right now it is rather not a preference for me. I will be discussing the structure that we can be tracking in a moment, but right now we can remove all these scenarios, all these areas of support that we could be tracking or of resistance that we were tracking previously, and we have to take a new outlook on this larger structure. Now again, since we are tracking a larger leading diagonal, we are looking to form an ABC pattern to the upside, within which we are now in the wave B. Yeah. And in this wave B, we will be tracking its appropriate area of support, which is between the $136 level all the way down to the $68 level at the 78.6% retracement. So far so good. We have even a three-wave structure to the downside, where we might have actually already bottomed within this wave B. We have touched the area of support. We have fulfilled all the expectations for this pattern. So technically, we have a possible bottom. But I have to say, it is not necessarily a high probability until we get some more evidence. Yeah, I would need to see an initial 5-wave move to the upside. Because keep in mind, there is still a lot of room in this area of support. Right now, we aren't even within it, and we need to be prepared for further extensions. Now again, within this movement to the downside, I have a couple of interpretations for which we have slightly different areas of resistance to be watching out for. So firstly, we have the possibility of forming here a larger impulse to the downside. Yeah, we could be looking here even at an A wave down, a B wave up, and a C wave that could still be ongoing. We have no evidence to have already topped, and in that case, I will be tracking in this area a possible 1-2 setup that, it would actually have quite bearish implications. Because in this wave 1 to the downside, we have already pushed quite substantially, and if we are to form an even stronger wave 3 afterwards, and then even a 4th and a 5th, we should be prepared for quite low prices. Now, this isn't to say that I wouldn't actually expect higher prices right now. I would even then still like to see a higher extension into a relief rally into this wave 2 area of resistance, but once we get there, once we have a more established top here within this wave 2, we need to be prepared for further extensions to the downside from this scenario perspective. Now, if we manage to break here above the 78.6% retracement at the $183.5 level, that would be a signal that this movement to the downside, the probability of this structure playing out would decrease significantly. But again, I need a sustained break, not just a week above it and then we push lower. Yeah, those often happen, and they are not a signal that the resistance area was actually broken. I need a sustained break. And then in the other interpretation that could take us still lower, I could see this working out, as I was mentioning, in an ABC structure, in which case we would need to be watching out for a larger area of resistance, and we won't really be tracking the area until, or as long as we are here below the area of resistance in yellow. I will be bringing that into focus if we actually get to those levels of resistance, but right now we can keep this in the back of our minds. Yeah, this is a possible interpretation if we didn't already bottom within the wave B in white, and if we aren't actually playing out in this quite bearish scenario in yellow. Now, if we are to look for extensions to the downside and ideal targets, we would notice that we haven't actually reached any ideal targets within this ABC structure. We haven't even gotten to the 78.6% retracement extension, where normally the ideal target is the 100% extension of the wave A. In that case, I want to mention it is not needed to get there. That is just that, an ideal target. We don't need to get there, and certainly we don't need to stop there. But if we are to look for further extensions lower, I actually have even another scenario where we could see this be reached and form a bottom in this area. Now, I won't go through all the scenarios because what is relevant is the current area of support. Yeah, this is the most important point that we can track here on this chart, and then the area of resistance for which to be prepared, that a reversal may come from. Yeah, we could start a third wave to the downside from this area. It is still a high risk, not necessarily a high probability. Yeah, it is not as if we had just formed here this initial movement, yeah, a 1-2 in this area or an AB. It is not the same. It is not the same high probability, but it is still a risk to be tracking for, and I will be focusing on this area for resistance as long as we are still below it. And for now, here in the shorter time frame, there isn't too much to be tracking, but if we want, we can look here at the very microstructure and assume that we may be looking here at an ABC structure to the upside, where within the wave C, well, I would still like to see here a fourth and a fifth still to come to have a more probable complete pattern in this area, and it would actually even take us into the resistance area where we might have a complete wave 2 technically. Now, probably I would expect it to be of a larger proportion, but not to get into those details. So here in the very nano time frame, if you are interested, we can be tracking a small area of support that can still allow us to extend higher within a fifth wave here within the wave C. Now we may see even further extensions, but the ultimate area of support, the ultimate level that I am watching for in this area is the 61.8% retracement for further continuation higher within this wave C, where the area starts at the $150 level all the way down to the $145 level, where again, below the $145 level, we should be prepared for even lower extensions. Yeah, we aren't looking to form here a 5-wave move to the upside in a wave C or in any wave anyway. But for now, these are the levels. This is the trade setup. I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you did, don't forget to subscribe and let me know what else you want me to cover, and I'll do my best to do that in the days and weeks ahead. And until then, I hope you have a nice day, and I hope to see you in the next video. Bye bye.